Blessing of Wealth. Alright boys, here we go. 40% increase. Gold drops. Let's farm Wyvern 11 like crazy. I've been doing it already. So this is the team. I'm not gonna 3-man this thing because I want to get some short runs. And let's have Sol Badguy in here because, I mean, he deals a ton of damage. A team that would go faster, of course, is by using a second defense down debuffer. Like I did it with Karen. I feel like with Karen it's even better than Luna. I feel like the defense down uptime is higher than Luna. But yeah, let's see if I can manage to proc a bunch of dual attacks and just like knock out the Wyvern in like one turn. I almost did it. I almost did it just before I started recording. Like Taranor Guard just went on a crazy dual attack frenzy and he kept on giving combat readiness to the team. And I brought the Wyvern down to, I mean, I think it was sub 10% or maybe it was like 10% around there. Just like right now, before the Wyvern went this time, for the second time. That was totally nuts. But it's all about like when you run like this, let's say you're running this exact group composition, you only have Taranor Guard that has a 75% chance to land defense down for one turn. But the thing is, if he starts dual attacking, of course it's going to be a much higher uptime if he keeps on landing defense down debuff that way, which is really cool. My Angelica, she dies, it's fine. I mean, I kill the Wyvern before barrier or after barrier. I mean, before, during, or after barrier. So the runs, I'll just do this real quick. I got my best Daydream Joker on Alexa, plus 30. Sol Badguy has a plus 24 Daydream Joker, and Taranor Guard has a plus 21. I mean, it's fine. It's just that you want to use this artifact because it deals damage based on the target's max health, and the Wyvern has just a little less than 140,000 health, which is insanely high compared to the other hunts. And yeah, it works beautifully. A full team of ice heroes will be much easier to gear for, because if you use a non-ice hero, you keep on giving 10% combat readiness to the Wyvern, which is not something that you want to do. So this video is about just like how I farm when we have this gold increase buff, this Blessing of Wealth. I mean, plus 30% gold increase is definitely worth spending the time and just grinding whichever hunt you can farm the fastest. Because if I decide to like 3-man this place, it's gonna be it's gonna take longer for each runs. There's some failures sometimes. My 3-man setup is the same as this minus Sol Badguy. Sol is 5-star. He's gonna get a bit more attack when I get him to 6-star. But it's really about I'll show my gear at the end of the video, so if you're like curious, you can just jump ahead and maybe come back or something like that. And it's all about really landing defense down debuff so you can roughly double your damage output. Attack buff is not that big of a deal when you are heavily relying on Daydream Joker's damage. And also, that could potentially be good. 3 speed, you could roll 4 speed twice at until plus 6, and then you got an extra chance for another plus 4 speed at plus 15. Let's say it rolls correctly, I would bring it to plus 15. But usually like these things don't go the way it's supposed to, you want them to go, of course. It requires so much luck. So yeah, you want for Daydream Joker, Sol Badguy already deals damage based on target's max health with his passive skill 2 and skill 3. Now everyone else on my team, it's just they scale off of their attack stat. They each have different multipliers, but The important thing is that with Daydream Joker on my 3 damage dealers, I want to have defense down debuff, I want to land critical hits, and I want to have as much critical damage as possible because it scales the damage of Daydream Joker. And yeah, when you have defense down debuff, you are roughly dealing twice the damage you would do if it wasn't there. So it gets to pretty crazy levels of damage and very high burst damage potential with the Taranor Guard that can just keep on dual attacking. But not only him, like I mean, like if it's Alexa or Sol Badguy in this particular group composition, it definitely speeds up the group, the run. And you definitely want as much speed as possible. You want your defense breaker to actually go first, so he can of course land defense down, and then you have your other 2 damage dealers that shortly follow. So here we go with defense down here, 25.8k. It's pretty good, but he doesn't have the plus 30 Daydream Joker that Alexa had. When I did the like Sol versus Alexa video, I put Daydream Joker maxed out on him because I mean he's a 5-star, so I guess it would even the damage. You will see. I'll show the battle result after each battles. But yeah, definitely when you have the Blessing of Wealth going, just like go crazy with the hunts. You're getting that bunch of free gold. Might as well do it if you have time for it, of course. And we're gonna kill. Yeah, we're gonna kill right here. I hope I get some good drops. And that neck is potentially, it could potentially be good, like really good. Really, like getting jewelry. Just getting jewelry with the right main stat is already hard to begin with. Now getting the right substats as well, if you want like full offense, if you're looking for that piece with like very high speed, at least with a rare, like you know at +6 that like where it's going, you can just give up on it very early on. If you want to know like more about Sol Badguy, like I made a like kind of a review, my early thoughts about him, and sort of a mini guide. You can check that out. And the last Wyvern 11 video, when I was it was like showcasing Alexa versus Sol Badguy, I was talking about his skill damage multipliers. I might just talk about them in a bit. But really, like if you are struggling in Wyvern, let's say you're just doing 10, 11 is actually easier if you can hold the front. Like if you can keep your front liner alive. Now, of course, if you have Angelica, like most of the work is done here. Like you can just use her in the front line, but not only that, you don't need to use her in the front line early on when you're starting out. You could have a knight, you could have Crozet, you get him for free, just do the connection. You get him, he could be in your front line, and you could use the, what is it called? Sword of Azira, that knight artifact, if you're lucky enough to have it, if you maxed it out at +30, it's like 30% damage reduction from bosses and mini bosses. So you have that on your Crozet. I mean, it doesn't have to be Crozet, it can be any knight if you were lucky to pull some of the other like natural 5-star knights. It would be a smarter investment to go with those, because of course you can use them in more areas of the game. So yeah, whatever knight really, as long as it's ice, of course you go with a full ice team. But you can definitely make it work with Sol Badguy. If you have Angelica as your healer, yeah, she doesn't need to be the frontliner at the start. You make her quick, you make her just like, that's the thing though. You're not gonna use Prophetic Candlestick on her because she will not be attacked until the Wyvern does the tail swipe. When he goes in the barrier phase, So if you go with that strategy, to be honest, you don't even need Angelica. You could just go with whatever knight, Crozet if you don't have any other Ice Knights, 5-star, and I mean, just use Ether. Just use Ether, and you can, if you're lucky enough to have Rod of Amaryllis on Ether, he can solo heal this no problem early on. Then you have you could use Misty Chain with Taranor Guard. You can use to be honest, yeah, you can use Misty Chain with Alexa as well. The reason why Misty Chain is good is because she has attack break. She has attack down debuff on skill 2, which cuts the attack of the Wyvern in half, which makes him do so much less damage. But not only that, with a group composition of, let's say you go with Taranor Guard and you go with okay, you have Crozet in front. He's your knight. Your healer, it could be Ether with Rod. It could be Angelica. I'll talk about other options after, but let's go with the most used heroes because they are, let's say, the easiest to gear for. Now you would have your Taranor Guard for defense down. That's 1 debuff. You got Crozet with skill 1 that can land attack down debuff. That's 2 debuffs. Misty Chain with her skill 2, she can land attack down debuff as well. That's still 2 debuff, but you have more chances. You have more uptime on that debuff. Now you also have Misty Chain has on, what is it? Skill 2 is the unhealable debuff as well. So you are at 3 debuffs already, which makes it so the Wyvern deals much less damage when you have 2 or less. When you have less than 3 debuffs, so 2 debuffs or less, or like maybe none, 1 or 2. I'll show you here. It says that if the caster has 2 or fewer debuffs, greatly increase damage dealt. So now if you are able to land 3 debuffs on the Wyvern plus attack down debuff, you are considerably lowering the Wyvern's damage, which is so much easier to heal. It's so much easier to heal that damage. Also, Misty Chain, she can actually help you in healing. She's like she's not a pure healer, but she can definitely assist with the healing. So that's another plus. And not only that, if you don't need to use Sol Badguy. You can use Junkyard Dog artifact on your Taranor Guard. Now you have the potential, because he's always using skill 1, right? You have the potential of landing 4 debuffs, and now it gets so much easier to actually land always have like 3 debuffs up on the Wyvern. Now if, let's say, you are starting out, you don't need 100% success rate. You can definitely fail your runs. It doesn't consume your energy, so you can just keep on doing it over and over until you're successful. And I would say that even if your success rate is low, even if you are in like around 30% success rate, that is good enough. If you have time for these runs, like you can do it on the side. You can just let the game go, and if you get lucky, you get lucky. But also, if you want to push that success rate, let's say you can attend the game, you can help out, just pop the Guardian. You pop the Guardian. It could be, I mean, if you use the first Guardian, Archie, you get a buff that increases your attack by 20% and also a crit chance buff of 20%. So maybe your stats are not as high as you'd like them to be offensively. You don't have an attack buffer in the group, so boom, you have that. Now, of course, if you have like, I don't know, like if you have DN and you're still not doing 11 and you're wondering how to do it, I mean, you're probably doing it already. Maybe you got DN and you quit the game, or I'm not quite sure. Maybe you focused on other hunts and not so much on building ice heroes for Wyvern 11, and you want to do the move. If you have Rod and DN, she can solo heal this as well. But like, it depends. Like, if you don't have Rod, now her barrier is not gonna cut it. But I feel like Rod plus the barrier. The thing is, the barrier, the Wyvern removes your buffs with skill 1. But if you resist it, the barrier will stick unless the damage just broke the barrier. But first, I feel like, from what I know, it deals damage first and then remove the buff. So if like it could just avoid one of the first hit damage, let's say. Now, of course, you cannot rely on buffs in Wyvern, because Wyvern keeps on removing the buff that you have on your frontliner. And also, if you fail to break the barrier, you will be hit for like your whole team is going to be hit. All their buffs are going to be stripped, they're going to be removed, and there's going to be a massive hit that follows. Now, the trick is, you don't even need to be able to break the barrier. The trick is that if you bring a hero that lands attack down debuff, you have the whole time during barrier phase to land that attack down debuff. When you land that thing, it's over, boys. Like, if you have a full team of ice heroes, first of all, you are taking reduced damage as ice, and you receive 30% less damage. You are at elemental advantage. The Wyvern's at disadvantage, so it is actually it has 50% chance of missing its attacks. That's like a huge survival boost right there. So here it is. Here it is. Create a gust of wind by moving incredibly fast and attacks all enemies, dispelling all buffs. There it is. This effect cannot be resisted, so you just can't resist that. Your buffs are gone. After attacking, creates a shockwave to deal additional damage, and that shockwave really hurts. But if you apply that attack down debuff, you are cutting its damage in half. So it is so much easier to survive that thing. Like, you can definitely survive with a full roster of 5-star hero with even like pretty low survival. If you make I mean, you need your front line to be tanky. I mean, if you go with, let's say you have Angelica, because she has crazy healing output, and you have Crozet in the front, you could make a 5-star Crozet do it with enough health and defense. So yeah, Angelica just does insane healing, and you would be good to go. You'd be good to go. Look at that damage. I don't pay attention to how long these runs are. I don't even pay attention to what's going on exactly, like how quick they go. If there's some crazy dual attack going on and they actually took out the Wyvern in like one pass, yeah, you guys will have to like let us know in the comment section if something crazy happened. That'd be cool if you point it out with like a timestamp or something. So yeah, really, like, it depends on your luck with which hero you pull. Angelica will make it so your stat requirement across your whole team will be much less. I mean, you don't need as much survival stats on an Angelica, let's say, that is tanking and healing herself in the front line with Prophetic Candlestick, which is lowering her cooldowns by 1 turn whenever it procs. It's 40% chance. For every attack she receives, she gets attacked 3 times by the Wyvern, so there's a pretty good chance it's gonna trigger during those this barrage of 3 attacks. But so many times it just didn't trigger. Right now it just triggered on the second one. You can just pay attention to that. Another thing is that effect resistance is 70% on the Wyvern, so you need 55% effectiveness to counter that. There's always 15% that cannot be countered. Now, that's the thing. 55 is good for PvE. PvE is, well, it's not PvP, it's everything that's not PvP. PvP is player versus player. PvE is player versus environment. Big damage here, but yeah, there's no attack buff to see his true potential. Yeah, you can check out my Golem video with Sol Badguy. I mean, he's at elemental advantage, so he deals 30% more damage because that's the way it works in stage 11. Like here, you see here, damage suffered from ice elemental heroes by 30%. Oh wait, you know what? You don't take reduced damage as ice. Sorry guys, you just deal 30% more. Non-ice receive 30% more damage. Sorry about that. I just corrected myself there. I knew something was off with what I said at that point. But yeah, I didn't realize it until now. Sorry. So yeah, there's really multiple ways to build a team, but definitely going for ice is as solid as it can be, unless, let's say, you have Sol Badguy, you have invested heavily into him, To be honest, it doesn't matter that much if you bring one hero that is not of the ice element, because Sol Badguy can apply Unable to be buff debuff, which doesn't matter against the Wyvern because it doesn't buff itself, but that accounts for one debuff. That accounts for one debuff. You could cheese it, guys. You could cheese it with Junkyard Dog artifacts. You can cheese it with having one on Taranor Guard, having one on Sol Badguy. Now, that is two hero that can land burn for 2 turns, and you have Taranor Guard that lands defense down debuff. You have Sol Badguy that applies Unable to be buff debuff, but you cannot Unable to be buff debuff, yeah. And you cannot silence him with passive on S2, which only anyways. So yeah, 2 burn, 1 defense down, plus Unable to be buff debuff. That is 4 debuff right there, just from 2 heroes. When I talk like about cheesing stuff, that means you are using some mechanic to just make the content much easier. You are really like what is it? What's the term I'm trying to get? It's you're smartly using smart use of game mechanics, basically. So that could be your way in into lowering the damage of the Wyvern greatly, because I mean it will not do greater damage because it has 3 debuffs or more. So there's that way, but you still don't have a hero that lands attack down debuff. Now you could go Taranor Guard, Sol Badguy, your other damage dealer or support or whatever. It could be a hero that has attack down debuff. Like you bring Misty Chain, and then your frontliner is Angelica. Now you've got Misty Chain that is helping with healing Angelica. You've got her landing unhealable debuff for 2 turns, attack down debuff. By herself, she's bringing 2 debuffs. Taranor Guard is bringing defense down and burn. That's 4, and Sol is bringing Unable to be buff debuff plus burn. That's 6 debuff right there. That's 6 debuff. So your chances of landing 3 of those debuffs is very high. Now Sol Badguy with the burn, it only works when he uses skill 1, but that's fine because he uses it quite often. Even like he gets an extra turn and just attacks again, so that's another chance to land it. And you can definitely do it like with low gear requirement. That is if you're blessed with Angelica. But let's go back to the knight in front with any like ice healer, a solid ice healer, like, well, of course, Angelica. You could use Angelica as your main healer in the back line early on, and you could just go all out on the survival stats on your frontline tank. As long as you can tank the damage and you help yourself with landing attack down debuff, or 3 debuffs plus, or both. Now that's really, it's going to make things much easier. The runs might be longer, but even if you fail to break the barrier, it's all good. Now if you go that way, your Taranor Guard, you should have Daydream Joker on him, unless you really need that burn to have 3 debuffs or more. Or if you use Alexa, have her with Daydream Joker. And even like your Taranor Guard, just work on having him quick and like high speed and high effectiveness, like 55% effectiveness. Now his role will be to drop that defense down debuff. He doesn't even need crit, he just needs to go before Alexa, and he needs to be able to land that defense down debuff and skill ups on his S1 to have 75% chance. Alexa will do all the damage. She always attacks twice with her skill 1 if she lands a critical hit, so you only need 85% crit chance on an ice hero for them to land a critical hit. On my Taranor Guard right now, I only have 80% crit chance, by the way, guys, because I changed his gear. I made him much faster, but unfortunately there is a non-crit. He has 5% chance to not land a critical hit. Sol Badguy, he's at like 46% crit chance, so as a fire hero he's not getting that 15% bonus like ice heroes, because they in this case are at advantage because it's ice versus fire, and ice is stronger than fire. So yeah, Alexa can be your damage dealer. Now there's another way, is you can use skill 2 of Alexa. You can have her with her skills on, and her skill 2 lands with 80% chance for each, lands a poison debuff for 2 turns. So let's say, what team are we gonna talk about? Let's say it's Crozet in front, your knight, whatever knight, maybe a nat 5, natural 5-star knight, and you've got yeah, you got Ether as your healer with Rod, and you got I guess we'll do it like that. Yeah, you will have to, like, Misty Chain is so much safer with the attack down debuff. That's your number 3, and your number 4, you don't even need Taranor Guard, you can just use Alexa. That's 4 heroes right there. And yeah, I mean, you've got Alexa with Daydream Joker. Unfortunately, there's no defense down debuff on the boss, but if you want to assist, you can have the second Guardian that can land defense down debuff and just pop the Guardian during barrier, doing whatever, like just, well, of course not shortly before barrier, but during barrier, or would you have enough souls? You need like 70 souls or 60 souls for that Guardian. Like right now we don't even have that, we have 50 only. So yeah, you know what, even after barrier you wouldn't even have enough. So I think Arky could be that hero that you would use, or you could use the third Guardian. Speed. Let's hit set though. You can use Guardian number 3, Arcasis. Wait, Arcasis is Arky actually. That's the first one. Yeah, number 3 has a weird name that I don't remember, but he lowers your team's cooldown by 2 turns. So if you are relying on your cooldowns for, let's say, Misty Chain S2, skill 2, to apply attack down debuff and heal bolt, like just to have 3 debuffs or more, you can definitely use that Guardian just to help you out early on. So yeah, really, like, most players that are having issues with Wyverns is because they don't have Angelica. Of course, you should be saving your Mystic Metals and just save them until Angelica appears in one of the Mystic summoning rotation. Now, of course, that doesn't guarantee you that you will get her, but it's a pretty good chance. If you have a few thousand Mystic Metals, you have quite a few tries to get her. But until then, if you want to farm Wyvern 11, and let's say you don't have Rod, now that you can do it, but you will need more gear. You will need your knight in front to be tankier. You will most likely, yeah, you will need him as a 6-star. If you use him as a 5-star, it's because you are over gearing the content. But wait, you can do it at 5-star if you have the Sword of Azira artifact, because it reduces damage from boss and elite monsters by 30% when it's maxed out. That's a massive survival increase just from a free artifact. If you did the challenge and you got 6 of them, your limit broke the thing and it's at plus 30. It doesn't have to be that high, but I mean, if you've got the artifact, it's gonna highly reduce the amount of stats you will need on your hero to survive. It's gonna be so much easier to sustain this this frontline knight. But yeah, you can use Ether as your healer without Rod. Just get as much speed as possible on him, and you might need to drop some skill ups to increase the healing a bit. Probably not. I would not invest skill ups onto Ether. That's not a smart move if you're thinking about the long term here. And yeah, you could use Misty Chains, which is gonna assist with the healing. She's a hybrid, like she deals some damage too, but she's not about the damage. She's about landing that attack break, attack down debuff plus unhealable. It's not because you need the unhealable, it's because you need to get 3 debuffs or more to even lower the damage received like even more. So you lower it even more, makes it much easier to heal, which allows the Ether and Misty Chain to sustain this this knight in the front, Ice Knight, with much less gear required. Now you're gonna have a bunch of runs where you're not like actually landing your debuffs, things are not going your way, but it's fine. I mean, just keep on trying. You will get some successful runs eventually. Always have the option of assisting with your Guardian, or I mean, you could even manual. If you want to push it even further. But of course, it's gonna be time consuming. But to be honest, like if you're able to get a few runs in or on stage 11, but to be honest, 11 is easier than 10. 10 is too random. Wyvern just keeps on attacking random heroes in your group, knocking them out. I mean, success rate might actually be much better in 11. I mean, not much better, but it's gonna be decent. And then you could do it a few times, and you could do some crafting too. Some nice pieces can go a long way to increase your team's your knight survival, your healer's speed. Just make sure it's an ice healer and not giving like 10% combativeness to the Wyvern all the time whenever it goes. But yeah, really like increasing the speed of your healer would be the best way to increase its healing output. And yeah, your backline can be like, I've done videos with 4-star Alexa, as long as you have Daydream Joker, 85% crit chance, high crit damage, and high speed. That's all you need, and you turn off her skills and she's gonna do a ton of damage. But the thing is, if you cannot break the barrier in time, forget about this plan, because the Wyvern is just gonna do this team-wide attack and just rip your 4-star hero in half. But you can definitely survive it with 5-star heroes if you have attack down debuff during barrier phase. Just before you fail to break it, you can definitely take that hit even with no buffs. That's the best way that you can manage to survive this failure to break the barrier. And you can fail it as much as you want, as long as you land that attack down debuff. As long as you sustain that frontliner with healing, you are good to go. You will eventually kill that Wyvern, and then it's all good. Like I'll show my gear at the end of the video. My Angelica has like really good survival stats, but she can still not sustain herself even with Prophetic Candlestick in some cases. Like let's say the Wyvern did not trigger the Prophetic Candlestick. The Wyvern landed a couple critical hits. These are all scenarios that will happen to you as well when you get to this point with, if you have an Angelica in the front line. But even if you have her in the back line, if you have like a knight in the front line, your knight can be taking a bunch of critical hits, and that's gonna definitely kill him quick. And if you cannot land attack down debuff, if you cannot land 3 debuffs plus, it's definitely he's definitely gonna take much more damage. I mean, it doesn't have to be a he, it could be a she. You can use Rose. You can use even Ice Rose as your frontliner. She can do fine. It's just she might need more survival stats than, let's say, Crozet. And Tywin actually will need more stats than a Crozet, because his defense maybe the health's about the same level, but the defense is like 100 less. And Crozet actually auto barrier himself when he drops below 50% health. Well, anyone that drops below 50% health on your team will receive an auto barrier from him, plus defense buff. Defense buff is like 2 turns now. That was a fairly recent buff they did to him. It's not much, but it definitely adds up. It could take 1 barrier hit, and maybe the defense down debuff, the defense buff doesn't get stripped off from the first attack. Maybe it gets another buff removed, or maybe he resisted, and maybe the defense buff is still there for the second hit, and that lowers the damage he would receive. All these small things help you to have lower stat requirement for your heroes and be able to just defeat the Wyvern with like earlier, less CP and all that. I mean, I just need to keep on farming this place, because yeah, I'm just 4-manning it instead of 3-manning it, because with the Blessing of Wealth plus 40% gold, if you spend money in the game, if you have those what is it, the monthly pack, you get, I think, what is it, 5% extra battle gold and experience, or maybe it's 10%. Anyways, I'm free to play. I never bought it. I don't remember exactly what the buff is. Wow, that was... What even happened there? The Sol died? No, the Sol didn't die. He just kept on getting non-crits. I don't even know what happened there. He's still there. He's still alive. Wow. So I dropped below 10,000 Sky Stones. I've been saving them for the Guilty Gear collaboration in case I wanted both limited heroes. Bike, and I'm just not going for her. I'm waiting for Dizzy to check her skill set, see if I'm gonna pull her. Anyways, that's not... doesn't matter for the video. That's the reason why. But like, if I just keep on running this non-stop, even without the Blessing of Wealth, as like 3-manning this place plus a fodder, I mean, I'm gonna go through my Sky Stones so quick. Some players might think that, yo, how do you like do it as free to play and you're just farming this place all day? No, I'm not farming this place all day. Not even close, man. I barely, like, I just use my free energy to run this place if I'm done with everything else from my dailies, if there's a side quest and all that, if there's a challenge to farm. I mean, this is the last place I come and farm and use my energy. But I'm not doing it often. It's been a while since I got an upgrade, really, like a speed piece. But anyways, I am getting upgrades. With using free energy from here, I'm still getting plenty of drops, and I don't really craft that much because it's not really required crafting. You don't have to craft everything you have. You're gonna use all your gold, and you're gonna have way too many pieces of gear to upgrade. You're gonna run out of space, and it's gonna be a mess. You can definitely have thousands of crafting materials, even 10,000 plus over time. I mean, 5-digit crafting materials. Like, as long as you have pieces of gear to enhance, you'll be fine. You just want, if you have one piece of gear for every slot, well, I mean, if you're, let's say, farming adventures like non-stop, you definitely want a weapon. You definitely want a helm, a chest, and a pair of boots that you know are potentially going to be extremely good. You know that maybe all these substats are percentage beside the speed, which would be the only flat, or even you could gamble and go with a piece with like an attack flat, defense flat, health flat, something like that. And you could just gamble. Maybe it will never roll onto that substat. And yeah, you just go with it. You start enhancing the item, and maybe you get lucky. But maybe early on you already see that it first roll at +3, it rolls into that flat health. You're like, wow, okay, I'll just bring it to +6. But that's already a bad start, because I mean, if that was your first roll, you still have +6, +9, +12, and +15. 4 more tries, and there's a fairly high chance that it's gonna roll again in that flat health roll. So if it's an epic piece and it's really good, let's say, but you've got that stupid flat health in there, and the first roll at +3 it rolls in there, you just keep going, because I mean, it depends how far you are in the game, guys. If you just started out, I mean, these item level 85 items, you should really like try to enhance them, give them a shot, even if it doesn't go your way. But you don't have to go crazy on it if it's rolling in that crappy stat, that crappy substat. But for boots, you definitely don't want flat health. You want percentage health. I mean, what you want mostly on damage dealers is speed, even on support on healers, like I said. To increase your healing output, you want speed. And yeah, I mean, you don't want to go with flat defense, flat health. That's definitely not the way to go. Flat attack for your boots, even if they're item level 85. That flat amount is not going to be good enough. It's about percentage or speed. So yeah, it really depends. If you're trying to gear your knight, you don't have to go with necklace health percentage, ring health percentage, and boots health percentage. Get one that is defense percentage, because you need to balance your stats it will increase your survival by so much more, and you don't have to worry in Wyvern with the defense down debuff. You will not receive that debuff. So really, like, balance your health and your defense. It it will greatly increase your survival. Like on my Angelica, now I have speed boots, but even when I had defense percentage boots, it really like pushed her survival. Like she was able to like take a lot of damage before she needed to heal herself, and the hits that she was taking were much lower as well, because it gets reduced with the defense, like extra damage mitigation. So really, like if you don't have, like let's say you're running a bunch of substats with health percentage, your main stat on your neck, ring, boots, or like health percentage, you like do yourself a favor and replace one of these with defense percentage, or like get some like a good amount of substats with the defense percentage, and it will really increase your survival. It's not all about having a high health pool. It's not all about that. So this could be the key in your team to fix your team, to be able to be more successful, have more successful runs. But even if you're starting out, you really have to pay attention to these stats and try to balance them. So yeah, that's a really huge tip for players that might not know about this. But if you receive the defense down debuff for other content though, now you have to be careful, because that debuff reduced your defense by 70%. That is that will roughly you will take double the damage you would take if you didn't have that debuff. So it's quite dangerous. Now when you have this debuff on you, health percentage becomes better, of course, and especially, I mean, if you're using that hero as well for PvP. And PvP, there's some heroes that penetrate defense. They just straight up penetrates defense. So you've got to be careful about that. Other things to know is that the bleed debuff actually ignores 70% of the target's defense, and bleed and burn both ignores the target's defense. It's at 70%. So yeah. So yeah, I've talked about so many things here. I mean, all the stuff about stats and what to enhance and things like this. These are all tips. So like, if your goal is to farm Wyvern 11 or make it more stable or make it more faster, all these things, all these like tips, they will allow you to change maybe some stats, move some gear around, and which in turn will allow you to be more successful in Wyvern 11. But not only that, just across, like if you have this mentality, if you apply these things, it will just help you across the game. So yeah, what else would I could talk about? You have to know that this Wyvern is immune to decreased combat readiness effect. That's why I turn off the skills of Taranor Guard. But even, I mean, yeah, I turned it off because of that, but also want a higher uptime on defense down debuff. So you definitely just turn off his skills, like do yourself a favor and do that, because it's gonna be a huge deal, because that defense down debuff, like I said, roughly doubles your damage output against the Wyvern, which is very, very strong. Sol won there. Don't know exactly what happened during that battle. Sol, you want his skills to be turned on. Alexa, like I said, it depends. If you are relying on her poisons to have 3 debuffs or more to lower the damage from the Wyvern to so your healer will have an easier time to keep your frontliner alive, or even itself alive, depending if you're using let's say Angelica as your healer and tank, or you have a knight in front plus her, or some other ice healer in the back. I mean, you can use Tamarine. You don't have to use an ice healer. You could use Tamarine as your healer. It's just going to give 10% combat units to the Wyvern whenever she goes. It's no big deal. Really, you can even go with 2 healers in the back. You could have Angelica. I have a video for this actually, guys. You can have what was it again? Oh yeah, I had Angelica in the front though, and then I have Ether. I have him in the back. He's helping your team keep that Angelica alive in the front line. And I was using Taranor Guard as my defense downer and damage dealer. And also I was using Alexa. And Alexa, she was a 4-star in the video. And with Daydream Joker artifact and defense down, she was dealing insane damage. And that was my setup. I was just, with the amount of damage she was pulling, I was able to break the barrier. And as a 4-star, she was able to receive the damage from that tail swipe. She survived it. And Ether, he was keeping that Angelica alive. And I mean, that was the group. That could be the group that you run as well. That is if you have Angelica for front lining. Now you could do it another way. And it could be a knight in the front. You could have in the back, you could have Angelica and Ether. Both would be healing that knight plus a damage dealer. I mean, it could be if you want to play it safe, really, you would have, if you have Crozet right in the front line, he could land that attack break, that attack down debuff, because you're gonna fail to break the barrier. There's like a very high chance that you're definitely gonna fail to break it because you only have like 1 damage dealer on that group composition. But if you have attack down debuff that lands before you fail to break that barrier, it's gonna let your team survive that huge shockwave damage after your team loses all its buffs. And over time, you will take out this Wyvern 11 boss, with your damage dealer, which should be using Daydream Joker. So you could be using Taranor Guard, would be your only damage dealer with Daydream Joker. You could even go further. You could use the, what was the name of the artifact? Oh my god. Junkyard Dog from the Guilty Gear collaboration. So you have a chance to apply burn for 2 turns, right? Now, yeah, you could have, now that's defense down, that is burn, and that's from Crozet attack down debuff. Right there, you have 3 debuffs, and you have the potential to lower the amount of damage the Wyvern does. And yeah, it's gonna make it easier to heal. And even if you fail to break the barrier, you've got Crozet coming to the rescue with an attack down debuff. You might need some skill ups to have it at 75% chance to land though. That's one thing to remember. You don't even need Crozet, you can use Basque, but that Basque is all the way back from the limited DN banner. So if you've got Basque, you probably already do Wyvern 11 because you've been playing for a long time, unless you did quit and you came back. Yeah, there are so many different options, it's crazy. But I would say that if you have Angelica, you should heavily invest into her, and Taranor Guard as well. And if you want that 3-man setup that is quite free-to-play friendly, get Alexa built and have your 3-man setup. After this run, I need to show you my gear. I might actually, like, the video might cut because I run out of time and I don't show you the gear because I'm gonna run out of space on my phone and it's gonna just stop recording. Oh my god, I didn't think about that. But if you want to see my gear, it's in the video with the 4 men, like Alexa versus Sol Badguy. No, actually I changed the gear on Taranor Guard, but everything else is the same. I'll try to show you guys. I feel like I might be cutting it close, but there was a lot of good pieces of information in here if you are still struggling in Wyvern, if you're trying to make your group like kill faster, if you're trying to go from 4-man to 3-man, all these things